Okay, so you've shared a ton of stuff about stress and burnout and resilience with us, and I'm excited to do a deep dive with you
Yeah.
into this material.
Let's do it.
And so we're going to focus mainly on that video you shared from Dr. Aditi Nerurkar,
Okay.
who's a mental health doctor and stress expert.
Yes.
And our mission today is
Okay.
going to be to pull out like the most important parts,
Okay.
the key insights from all this, and help you like really figure out
Sure.
this whole modern day stress thing that we're all dealing with.
Yeah.
So with us today to guide us through this material is our amazing expert.
Yep.
She's a Harvard physician
Wow.
and nationally recognized stress expert.
That's incredible.
And what I love so much about Dr. Narukar is that her expertise isn't just academic, it's personal,
Right.
stemming from her own journey of being a stressed patient
Okay.
to then becoming like the stress authority
Yeah.
that she is today.
I love that.
So I was going through your shared materials, and this statistic really jumped out at me. It said 72% of people report struggling with stress,
Wow.
and 70% experience at least one of the hallmarks of burnout.
That's a huge percentage of the population.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my first question, is like, what is going on?
What's happening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the video, Dr. Nurkar, she observes that we're facing unprecedented levels of stress
Yeah.
globally,
Oh, yeah.
and it's affecting everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just like certain professions or ages or anything like that.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
But there is kind of like a silver lining here,
Okay.
which is that at least like we're talking about it more.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, there's more openness and dialogue
Yeah.
about mental health and stress and burnout
Right.
in every area of life, from business
Yeah.
to, just everyday conversations with people.
Sure.
But it is kind of scary when you think about those numbers.
Yeah.
Like 70% experiencing burnout.
72% stressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, most people are saying that recent years have been the most stressful that they've ever experienced professionally.
So this idea of a delayed stress reaction that she talks about,
Yes.
can you kind of walk me through that a little bit?
So Dr. Narukar talks about how our brains are kind of like a dam
Oh,
when it comes to stress.
Yeah.
And so when we're like under acute stress, we're holding it all together.
right. We're keeping it all in.
We're keeping it all in.
Yeah.
But then when that stressor goes away,
Uh-huh.
you finish that project at work,
Yeah.
you come out of a global pandemic or what,
A big event.
you get a big event,
Yeah.
our defense is lower, and then all of a sudden that dam bursts and it's like a deluge.
Oh, so that's why sometimes you crash after the stressful thing is over.
Exactly.
I see.
And this can lead to all sorts of things like anxiety,
Sure.
depression,
Okay.
sleep problems, burnout,
Wow.
even if you think you should be feeling relieved.
Yeah.
So you really got to be mindful about this. After a period of high pressure, even if you feel okay initially,
Okay.
like schedule in some restorative activities.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's get into some of the terminology.
Okay.
Can we just like clarify the difference between like feeling stressed and then actually being in burnout?
Yeah. So Dr. Narukar differentiates between acute stress and chronic stress.
Okay.
And acute stress, our brains are actually pretty good at handling.
Okay.
That's like the fight or flight response.
Right.
It's orchestrated by the amygdala,
Yeah.
the emotional hub of our brains.
Uh-huh.
And so what happens is that the prefrontal cortex,
Mm-hmm.
that part of our brain,
The adulting part?
the adulting part,
Yeah.
that kind of takes a back seat
Okay.
during these acute stress moments.
Okay.
So like your heart rate goes up,
Uh-huh.
blood flows redirected to your muscles.
Sure.
And, it's all very efficient for dealing with like an immediate threat.
Like a tiger.
Exactly like a tiger.
Yeah.
But the problem is that
Uh-huh.
nowadays we're not really dealing with tigers so much as we are dealing with,
Those
yeah, exactly.
relationship issues.
Yeah, work deadlines,
Yeah.
all this stuff.
So it's like constant low-grade stress.
Right. It's chronic.
Yeah.
And so if acute stress is like a sprint, chronic stress is like a marathon that you can't stop running.
Right.
Your body never gets to recover.
Gotcha.
And that's how you end up in burnout.
So burnout is what happens when your brain doesn't get to rest
Exactly.
from that chronic stress.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you. But she talks about how like our understanding of burnout is changing too.
Yes.
It's not just that classic like, oh, I'm so apathetic, I don't have any energy.
Right.
Like it can look different now.
Yeah. So like those classic symptoms are still there.
Okay.
But she points out that we're also seeing a lot of atypical symptoms now. And like in one study, 60% of people with burnout
Wow.
said that their main thing was an inability to disconnect from work.
So it's almost like they're addicted to work.
Yeah. And she calls it an addiction to work.
Right.
Like you're always checking your emails.
Right.
You can't really switch off.
Yeah.
And this is a huge red flag for burnout.
So it's different from like being passionate about your work
Exactly.
and engaged.
Right. This is like you can't stop even if you wanted to.
Okay.
And the other thing is that people don't like to talk about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's a lot of stigma around burnout. People feel embarrassed
Sure.
or ashamed to admit they're struggling.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And did you know that 2/3 of parents experience parental burnout?
2/3? That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
That's wild.
It's really important to address burnout even if you feel successful.
Right.
Because, like she uses this analogy
Okay.
of like a sprint versus a marathon,
Uh-huh.
and life is a marathon. You can't just keep sprinting.
Yeah, you'll burn out.
Exactly, you'll burn out.
So this brings us to like this phrase she uses,
Okay.
toxic resilience.
Well,
What is that?
So toxic resilience is basically like this idea of, keep calm and carry on.
Right, just push through it.
Yeah, just push through it no matter what.
Okay.
But real resilience, like biologically speaking,
Yeah.
is about being able to adapt and recover and even grow
Okay.
from adversity.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, you need stress.
Really?
Yeah, you need to experience stress
Okay.
for resilience to develop.
Interesting.
It's like a muscle. You have to work it out.
I see.
But the problem is that companies and organizations,
Yeah.
they've kind of twisted this word resilience,
Okay.
and they use it to mean like, be productive no matter what.
Okay.
Like, just keep going.
So that's the toxic part.
Exactly. That's the toxic part.
Yeah.
It's a mind over matter approach,
Right.
where you're just supposed to ignore your limits and your needs
Yeah, okay.
and just keep producing.
So real resilience is actually about respecting your boundaries
Exactly.
and resting and being kind to yourself.
Yes, self-compassion is so important.
Uh.
And, there's also this misconception about generational resilience.
Oh, yeah.
Like, boomers versus Gen Z.
Right.
But the thing is, everyone's experience is valid.
Yes.
You can't compare different generation struggles.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going through different things.
Yeah. It's a different world.
It's a different world.
Okay, so what about this idea of the canary in the coal mine?
Oh, yes. This is so interesting.
Okay.
So basically, the canary in the coal mine is a metaphor
Okay.
for those early warning signs that our bodies give us.
For stress.
For stress, exactly.
Okay.
So just like coal miners use canaries to detect bad air,
Uh-huh.
our bodies have their own ways of telling us that we're getting stressed out.
So these are things that we might not even be aware of.
Right. It could be physical things like,
Yeah.
heart palpitations or headaches
Okay.
or digestive issues.
Right.
Or it could be like emotional changes,
Okay.
irritability or trouble sleeping.
Gotcha.
And of course, you should always see a doctor to rule out anything serious.
Right, of course.
But the thing is that a lot of us have these really specific canary symptoms,
What do you mean?
like things that are unique to us.
Okay.
Like you were saying, you get those little tongue ulcers when you're stressed.
Mhm.
Or maybe someone else gets a skin rash, or they start getting colds all the time.
Oh, that's interesting.
Like our body's own personal stress signature.
I like that.
And once you become aware of these signals,
Yeah,
you can't unsee them.
that's true.
So like suddenly you notice this hum
Yeah.
that was always there, but you never paid attention to it before.
So it's not a weakness, it's just like being human.
Exactly.
Okay.
We're all just human.
So she mentions the HPA axis. What's that all about?
So the HPA axis stands for the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis.
Okay.
And it's basically like the main stress highway
Okay.
in our brain and body.
I see.
So the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are in the brain,
Okay.
and then the adrenal glands are on top of your kidneys,
Uh-huh.
and they all work together
Yeah.
to manage our stress response.
So what does it do?
So it releases hormones like cortisol,
Okay.
and it gets your body ready to deal with stress.
Okay.
And, the amygdala that we talked about before,
Right.
that plays a big role in this too,
Okay.
especially with the fight or flight response.
Uh-huh.
But the problem is that with chronic stress,
Yeah.
the HPA axis doesn't shut off properly.
Oh.
So you're just constantly flooded with stress hormones.
Like the alarm system is always going off, even when there's no danger.
Right.
Okay.
And that can have all sorts of negative effects.
So can stress be contagious?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So it's not contagious in the same way that like a virus is contagious.
Oh.
It's not like a pathogen or anything.
Right.
But emotions, and especially like toxic environments,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they can be kind of contagious
Okay.
in a more social and psychological way.
So it's like the atmosphere you're in.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, she talks about this idea of therapeutic presence.
What's that?
So it's this idea that like the quality of human connection
Yeah.
can actually have a positive impact on our health.
Interesting.
Like when you feel seen and heard and understood,
Right.
that can actually make you feel better physically.
Wow.
And a lot of that has to do with like eye contact, body language,
Okay.
tone of voice.
Sure.
It's about authenticity.
Right.
And our voices are really powerful
Yeah.
for building connection and detecting authenticity in others.
So what about the resilience rule of 2?
Oh, this is a good one.
Okay.
So basically, our brains can only handle like 2 new changes at a time.
Really?
Yeah. And this applies to good changes too.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like even positive changes could be stressful.
Okay.
And there was this study done in the 1960s
Okay.
by Holmes and Rahe,
Okay.
and they found that the more life events someone experienced, the more stressed they were,
Okay.
and the more likely they were to get sick.
So even good things can be stressful. Wow.
So Dr. Nurker's advice is to focus on just 2 small changes at a time
Okay.
and give yourself about 8 weeks for those to become habits
Okay.
before you add any more.
And that connects with her 5 resets framework.
Yes.
Okay.
It's all about taking things slowly,
Right.
step by step. And it's the same thing that doctors do with their patients.
Yeah.
They don't try to overwhelm them with too much information.
Right. Just focus on a few things at a time.
Exactly.
Okay. So the first of these resets is to get clear on what matters most.
Yes.
Why is that so important?
So when we're stressed,
Right.
our brains go into survival mode.
Right.
It's that amygdala taking over.
Uh-huh.
And that makes it hard to think clearly
Okay.
about our values and priorities.
Gotcha.
So the first reset is all about getting out of that amygdala-driven state
Okay.
and engaging the prefrontal cortex.
The adult brain.
Yeah, the adult brain.
Okay.
And to do this, she uses this acronym, MOST,
Okay.
which stands for Motivating Objective, Small and Timely.
What does that mean?
So basically, you want to identify goals
Uh-huh.
that are motivating to you,
Okay.
meaningful to you,
Sure.
that are objective so you can measure your progress,
Okay.
that are small and manageable,
Right.
and that are timely,
Yeah.
meaning you can achieve them in like 3 months or so.
So it's about shifting from like what's wrong with me
Exactly.
to what matters most to me.
Yes.
I love
So
this.
instead of focusing on the negative,
Yeah.
you're focusing on the positive.
Okay.
What do I want to achieve?
Okay.
What's important to me?
So she gives some examples in the video, right?
Yeah, she talks about like teaching your grandchild to play baseball
Uh-huh.
or going on a hike,
Uh-huh.
things that you can look forward to
Yeah.
and that give you a sense of accomplishment.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people are probably wondering about exercise. Like
Yeah.
how much do you really need to do to manage stress?
So even a little bit of exercise can help.
Okay.
It gets you out of your head and into your body.
Right.
And she suggests like just incorporating little bits of movement throughout your day,
Okay.
like parking further away from the store,
Okay.
taking the stairs,
Yeah.
aiming for like a 20-minute walk,
Sure.
when you can.
Okay.
And she actually shares her own story about how she used to feel overwhelmed by the gym.
Yeah.
And so she just started with walking.
Okay.
And that made a huge difference for her.
So you don't have to like go crazy.
No, not at all.
Just do something.
Just do something.
Okay.
And even small amounts of exercise can increase your self-efficacy.
What does that mean?
It means like you feel more capable,
Okay.
more confident.
Okay.
And it also helps to silence that inner critic.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. And there's a ton of research showing that physical activity
Oh.
reduces stress and anxiety.
Okay.
So it's really about moving from a sedentary lifestyle
Right.
to an active lifestyle.
Okay.
And the type of exercise doesn't really matter as much as finding something you enjoy
Right.
and doing it consistently.
Gotcha.
And it's important to focus on the mental health benefits
Okay.
rather than just like the physical appearance benefits.
Sure.
It's about how you feel.
So what about this popcorn brain thing?
Oh, yes, popcorn brain.
Yeah.
So this is a term coined by Dr. Levy,
Okay.
and it basically describes what happens to our brains
Yeah.
when we're constantly bombarded with information online.
Right. Like from our phones and our computers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like our brain circuits get overstimulated.
So are we all addicted to the internet now?
Well, it's not quite an addiction.
Okay.
Like it's not internet addiction disorder,
Right.
but it is a really common experience.
Okay.
And it's made worse by stress.
Oh, how
So when we're stressed out,
yeah.
our amygdala, that primal part of our brain,
Uh-huh.
it's on high alert,
Okay.
looking for danger.
Sure.
And that can lead to us like constantly scrolling.
Right, like looking for something bad to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So it's not really about like giving up the internet entirely,
Right.
but it's about creating healthy boundaries,
Okay.
what she calls a media diet.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do we do that?
So she talks about three main things: time limits, geographical limits, and logistical limits.
Okay, break that down for me.
So time limits would be like, saying, okay, I'm only going to spend 20 minutes a day reading the news.
Okay.
Geographical limits would be like keeping your phone out of your bedroom at night.
Oh.
Or not having it at the dinner table.
Sure.
And then logistical limits would be like,
Yeah.
maybe I don't check my email first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Or maybe I don't have social media on my phone at all.
Okay.
Things like that.
So it's about being intentional.
Exactly.
Okay.
And she also talks about the impact of like graphic news content,
Okay.
like videos and images,
Yeah.
and how that can actually increase your risk of PTSD.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of research on this.
So it's really important to balance staying informed
Right.
with protecting your mental health.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So maybe instead of watching the news all the time,
Oh, okay.
you read it.
Okay.
And if you're starting to feel really distressed or you're noticing some alarm signs,
Yeah.
definitely reach out to a professional.
Okay. Good advice.
And another that's interesting is that she talks about how
Yeah.
we're all so hyper-connected now,
Right.
but we're also really disconnected.
Oh, that's true.
Like in our real-world relationships.
Yeah, we're all on our phones all the time.
Exactly.
And she mentioned loneliness as well.
Yeah, loneliness is a huge problem.
Yeah, it feels like it's an epidemic these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's actually really bad for your health.
Wow.
Yeah, like it increases your risk of heart disease and stroke.
Really?
And it can even shorten your lifespan.
That's scary.
Yeah. So it's really important to prioritize connection and community
Okay.
as an antidote to stress.
So what about breathing techniques?
Oh, breathing is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's the only physiological mechanism that we have
Okay.
that's under both voluntary and involuntary control.
So we can control it, but it also happens automatic.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so she recommends practicing diaphragmatic breathing.
What's that?
It's also called belly breathing.
Oh.
And it's basically where you focus on expanding your belly
Okay.
when you breathe in
Okay.
rather than just your chest.
Gotcha.
And then you exhale slowly through pursed lips.
Okay.
And this helps to shift your nervous system
Okay.
from that fight or flight mode
Yeah.
to the rest and digest mode.
So it calms you down.
Exactly.
I like that.
And she also has this really simple technique called stop breathe,
Okay.
where you just pause for a moment,
Yeah.
take a breath,
Uh-huh.
and just be present
Okay.
for like 3 seconds.
Okay.
And you could do this before a meeting
Uh-huh.
or while you're doing like a mundane task,
Uh.
just to kind of reset and de-stress.
I like that. So simple but effective.
Exactly.
So therapeutic writing. This
Yeah.
was an interesting one.
So this is a technique developed by James Pennebaker.
Okay.
And it's basically where you write continuously for about 20 to 25 minutes
Okay.
for 4 days in a row
Okay.
about a traumatic or stressful event.
Okay.
And it's been shown to have all sorts of benefits,
Oh, really? Like what?
like improved mood,
Okay.
better sleep,
Wow.
reduced anxiety,
Okay.
less irritability,
That's great.
even better grades in school,
Wow.
and fewer hospital admissions.
That's amazing.
It's pretty incredible, right?
Just from writing.
Just from writing.
So how does it work?
Well, it's not totally clear,
Okay.
but it seems like it might help with cognitive reframing.
What's that?
So like finding new ways to think about the experience.
Okay.
And it also helps you process your emotions.
Right.
And it creates a safe space
Uh-huh.
to explore those difficult feelings.
Yeah.
And it might even shift brain activity from the amygdala,
The emotional part.
the emotional part,
Yeah.
to the prefrontal cortex.
Like I'm thinking part.
Right, the thinking part.
Okay.
So it's like you're taking all that emotional baggage,
Uh-huh.
you're putting it down on paper,
Yeah.
and then you can start to make sense of it.
I like that.
Yeah.
So this last one, live a lifetime in a day.
Oh, yes. This is a good one.
This sounds very intriguing.
So it's basically about bringing elements of a long and meaningful life
Okay.
into each day,
Okay.
even just for a few minutes.
Okay.
And it's an antidote
Yeah.
to that whole hustle culture mentality.
Right. Just go, go, go all the time.
Exactly.
Achieve, achieve, achieve.
So she talks about 6 main elements.
Okay. What are they?
So childhood,
Okay.
work, solitude, vacation, family, and retirement.
And how do you fit all that into one day?
Well, it's not about literally doing all those things.
Okay.
It's about incorporating the essence of those things
Okay.
into your day.
Okay. I see.
So, for example, childhood. That's about bringing in wonder and playfulness.
Okay.
Work is about having a sense of meaning and accomplishment,
Even if it's not paid work.
even if it's not paid work.
Okay.
Solitude is about taking time for reflection. Vacation is about doing things you love.
Okay.
Family is about connecting with loved ones.
Right.
And retirement is about taking stock of your day
Okay.
and reflecting on what you've accomplished.
So it's like a little mini life review.
Yeah, exactly.
someday.
Exactly.
Bye.
So you go to bed feeling fulfilled
Right.
rather than feeling empty.
Even if you've been busy all day.
Exactly. Even if you've been busy all day.
So much great information in this video.
I know.
It's a lot to process, but it's so valuable.
Absolutely.
So to recap for you,
Yes.
we talked about how stress and burnout are like super common and how our understanding of those things is changing.
Yeah.
And we talked about this idea of a delayed stress reaction.
The dam bursting.
Yeah, and how toxic resilience is not real resilience. Yeah.
And how it's so important to recognize your own personal stress signals.
You're a canary in the coal mine.
Yes. And we went through how the brain responds to stress
Right.
with the HPA axis and all that.
Yes.
And then we got into some really practical stuff
Right.
like setting digital boundaries.
Media diet.
Yeah. And the rule of two.
Small changes over time.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
how important it is to know what really matters to you.
Your values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then those amazing breathing techniques.
Stop, breathe.
Yeah. And therapeutic writing.
So powerful.
Yeah. And then finally, that beautiful concept of live a lifetime at a day.
I love that one.
Me too. So I hope this deep dive was helpful for you
I hope so too.
and that you got some like real actionable insights
Yes.
from all this information.
Yeah.
Now I'm curious,
Yeah.
what are your canary symptoms?
That's a good question.
Yeah. What are those little things that tell you
Huh.
that you're starting to get stressed out?
And maybe this week, try setting one small digital boundary
Okay.
and see how that impacts your well-being.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, I think it'll make a difference.
I think so too.
So thank you for sharing all these amazing sources with us
Of course.
and for joining us on this deep dive into stress, burnout, and resilience.
It was my pleasure.
We hope you got a lot out of it
I did.
and that you'll join us again next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.